Hi, Hi, good morning. Welcome to this analytics immersion session. Greetings from the Singapore office. So today we are doing a a session on getting implementation right with clean and correct data, and I'm we're co-presenting with a couple of experts here from Sparkline, which is one of our Google Analytics 360 resellers, and we're going to run through the agenda. We'll wait for a couple of minutes for a few more people to join in, but otherwise, we hope that you're all good to go and you can see this clearly. All right, so good morning. So again, thank you for joining today's Google Analytics immersion session. This is part of a training series on Google Analytics streamed for the Southeast Asia markets. And this is the fourth installment in the series. And today we continue with a discussion on a more specific aspect of Google Analytics work. In this 45-minute session, we will look at navigating through implementation issues to achieve a healthy Google Analytics account. So my name is Paulo, and I'm an account manager for Analytics 360 in Southeast Asia. Today, I'll be joined by experts from Sparkline, one of our Analytics 360 resellers in Southeast Asia. Co-presenting with me are Joy and Madhu from Sparkline. So Sparkline handles numerous GA360 accounts in the region and have seen what can go wrong. We will tap into their experience and then discuss how to make sure we implement right so we get clean and correct data. So today's discussion on implementation issues covers two fronts. First, we take a quick health check of your analytics account. This will ensure that you've got the basics covered and have an account that is configured properly. The second half of our discussion covers common pitfalls in accounts that are already up and running. We will see the impact of issues on accounts and explore a tool in the Sparkline Auditor that can help speed up that process of looking at account-related issues. We'll then answer questions you may have before the end of the session. So let's start by going over the configuration of your analytics account. How you configure your account, properties, and views can affect data collection. From experience, we've seen that lots of accounts have small issues because the owners didn't go over the available settings when their analytics was initially set up. Let's go through the most important ones to make sure that our analytics account is healthy. The first good practice is to create at least 3 views per property. When you set up an account, you get one account, one property, and one view by default. So this view is unfiltered, making that you will see all the data that gets sent into the analytics property. It's good to keep this view untouched. We can refer to this view to see every bit of analytics data sent to the account, which helps in those times we have to trace an issue we may be having with the analytics account. This kind of view is typically named a raw data view. During setup, take time to create two additional views. First, create what's called a master view. This master view will serve as the reporting view of your production data. We want this data to exclude any internal traffic generated from within the company, so take time to set up filters to remove employee or testing data from its reports. Filter out any traffic from agencies and third parties who work with, as well as traffic from staging or development servers. The master view should only contain production data with traffic from actual users of your digital properties. The last view you should create is called a test view. Ideally, you don't want to touch the production view. The test view allows you to introduce changes or back them out without affecting master data. Once you're satisfied with any changes and have tested such, you can carry over the updates to the master view. Next on this checklist would be to sync time zone and currency settings on analytics and products that you connect with, such as Google Ads, Display and Video 360, and Search Ads 360. This ensures that data can be viewed consistently as you switch products in your marketing stack. The third action you should perform is to activate Google Signals. Enabling this setting allows you two important things. One, it allows the account to receive Google demographic and interest data, which enriches your data with additional information about your users based on their actions on other Google properties. This gives you more information for the second thing Google Signals enables, which is the ability to publish remarketing audiences to integrated products. The last item in this checklist may be a simple checkbox setting, but it is an important indicator that you intend to use the account seriously. Nobody wants spam and bot traffic to appear in their Google Analytics accounts, so make sure that this setting is checked. Next, we move on to tracking related items that you should check. How you set up tags and tracking can affect data collection. Get it wrong, and your analytics account will not receive any data. So, first, ensure that the analytics code snippet is set up across all pages of your website or screens of the app. Also, make sure to set up tags correctly. This will make sure that your analytics account, will receive data and that the account will remain active. Two other items on this checklist involve the referral exclusion list. First, if your website is set up across multiple subdomains, add these subdomains to the referral exclusion list. You might have something like xyztelco.com, directing users interested in a mobile plan to mobile.xyztelco.com, and then to signup.xyztelco.com for conversions. If you fail to add the subdomains to the referral exclusion list, a user visiting a new subdomain will be counted as a new session. The user journey data will be broken. So what is supposedly one user going to xyztelco.com, then looking at mobile plans and subsequently signing up, becomes three users and three different sessions. Make sure that this is covered so our user journey data remains accurate. Similarly, exclude third-party payment sites you use within the user journey flow. So continuing from the XYZ telco example, if the website uses a payment gateway to process a payment, that payment gateway has to be included in the referral exclusion list. User journey data will be broken if this isn't done. So you'll see lots of one-page conversions at the thank you page that you can trace back. So again, ensure tags across all pages. And second and third here on this checklist, exclude subdomains and exclude third-party payment sites. There are other basic account configuration and tracking code issues that you might neglect to look at but should check nonetheless. First, make sure that the default URL in the property settings is correct. Make sure it is valid and points to the default URL for your website. Next, make sure that the analytics tracking code is present on the landing page for your default URL and that it points to your analytics account. This may be a minor thing, but this indicates that you're using analytics for a valid website, that you've set up tracking for this valid website, and that this website will send data to the analytics account when it is active. The next thing we would check for Google Analytics accounts are settings that are connected to Google Ads accounts. So for such accounts, make sure that auto tagging is enabled on the Google Ads side. It will save you from the work of manually tagging every final URL. But more importantly, auto tagging will provide additional data in your Google Analytics reports beyond what the standard UTM parameters provide. This allows you to see richer campaign performance reports in analytics. For all non-Google media, make sure to use UTM parameters for accurate campaign tracking. So while on the subject of tracking, we definitely want to track conversions. We build websites and apps with specific objectives in mind and want users to perform actions that we classify as macro and micro conversions. Next on our account health checklist is to make sure that goals and e-commerce are set up in analytics. Goals can be a destination page, an event, duration, or pages per session. These should represent the things that we want users to do on our digital properties. For websites with a shopping component, enable e-commerce tracking. This allows us to see users' transaction data, helping gain insights into which products drive the most revenue and also help spot customer purchase habits. Enhanced e-commerce data enables advanced reports such as shopping behavior and is ideally enabled as well. So to recap, we've covered the basic things to make sure are done or covered in your analytics account. We want to make sure that we can get the most out of your analytics account, and having it configured properly ensures that clean and correct data will flow in. We'll summarize account health with these 4 points. Number one, make sure that the account snippet is set up across the website or app. This ensures that data is sent to analytics as well as shows that an account is active as users visit the digital properties configured. Number two, enable Google Signals. It enriches your data with Google Audience data and allows you to publish remarketing audiences to integrated products. Number three, enable bot filtering. This makes sure that spam and bot traffic does not appear in your reports. Number four, enable auto tagging in Google Ads for accounts connected to analytics. Connected to this is the importance of making sure that we maximize any available integrations. So integrate your Google Analytics account to Google Ads and Google Marketing Platform products and use your first-party data for better marketing campaigns. In the next part of this session, we suppose that you've done the homework to set up your Google Analytics account properly. We look at common issues seen with accounts that are actively collecting data. Our experts from Sparkline will share their experience and their tool for diagnosing analytics account issues. So I turn it over to Joy and Madhu from Sparkline to continue with this part of the session.
Thanks, Paolo. Super excited to be here this morning. I'm Joy, and as part of my job at Sparkline, I actually speak to various clients about their goals to get more data-driven in their decision making. However, there's a common theme throughout, which I tend to hear when I speak to clients, and that is how do I build confidence around the data I use? So, how big is that problem, right? In a recent survey, we see that there's about 2/3 of people who think that inaccurate data is undermining their ability to provide an excellent customer experience. Now, that is a huge inhibitor at the starting point itself if you want to get data driven. And if you look at the value of actually how expensive this could be, it's about 3.1 trillion as per another survey. That is the cost of poor data quality, and that too in one single geography in the US. From our side as well, we've actually run more than 3,000 audits over the years. And typically, an average score that we've seen for specific tests that we run for health checks on analytics accounts is about 45% across the accounts. So, what does that mean? More than half the data that you're actually tracking to make decisions may actually not be accurate. So, bad decisions based on bad data, of course, have a direct impact on business performance. How does this relate to your analytics implementation in particular? So, if there are top three reasons for implementations breaking, it's actually changing in site functionality, not utilizing all functions of a tool that you're using, in particular, for example, Google Analytics. And if there are removed or duplicated tags, which basically make your dependencies break, and therefore you have broken implementations, which result in incorrect data. And on the right, we have all the issues that we don't want to be facing when we are doing these implementations, tying back to survey results, as I showed in the first slide. So, what do you do about it? We take about 25 to 40 hours to do a manual audit for any implementation, for any property that we are actually partnering with a client or an agency on. But today we have a tool which we want to introduce to you, which is Sparkline Auditor, that reduces this to a few minutes. So without any further ado, I think let's go under the hood a bit and take a look at what this tool does. And I'd like to hand it over to my colleague Madhu to take it from here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Madhu. I run the integration team at Sparkline, and I'm very excited to be chatting to you all about data governance and data auditing, and obviously talk to you all a little bit about the tool as well. On the auditor as such, it's more like an internal favorite. We use a lot of tools internally as well, but this has kind of really helped us in that sense. Because I come from a team where we've always had to run a lot of manual audits, and most of the manual audits across different platforms, across different properties for different clients, has always taken us about 25 to 40 hours, if I can say that, depending on the complexity of the client and complexity of the Google Analytics setup as such. But the auditor, I mean, it's kind of reduced our workload a lot. Like it kind of brings all of that down to 3 minutes. Obviously, there's a few manual components that you might want to do at the top of this to make your report richer. But the point to take note is that it kind of does the heavy lifting as such. So the bulk of your work is taken over and taken care of by the auditor. So yeah, I mean, excited to talk to you all and show you all how the interface looks as such. I'm just navigating to the interface. Feel free to just type on the live chat in case you're not able to see it for some reason. So this is roughly how the interface looks. But yeah, actually, you know what? Before we go into the tool and the interface, the main point that you'd want to keep in mind here is around speed and scalability. So whenever you're running an audit, be it manually or even be it using an auditor or an audit tool or however you want to do it, it's best if you're actually using this as part of your governance plan and not just running it once, working on the recommendations and stopping at that. So this is more like bringing it into your data governance culture as such. So that's how you'd want to be looking at this whole session. Now a little bit on the interface. So you can see that the interface has a few settings questions that it asks you. So there's like question steps 1 through 5, which you might want to fill out. Some of these questions are just business health questions. Some of them are your marketing, tech stack, specific to you kind of questions. And there's a few technical questions as well. Not very technical in the sense that it just asks you if you're using Google Tag Manager to implement Google Analytics and whatnot. And also, like for any of these settings, if you kind of go into them, you find a lot of additional options that you can choose from. So for instance, if you run on online advertising campaigns and you specifically use a few platforms, then you can essentially check that as well. So once you're done with all of this, all you have to do is scroll down to the bottom and click on the Run Audit button. So this kind of throws up a screen where there's a progress bar. So it kind of gives you the percentage completion in terms of how much you're done. And yeah, it roughly takes about 3 to 5 minutes for the entire audit to run and for the reports to be generated. So having said that, let's also take a quick look at how the reports will look. Again, not to go into detail into any or each section, but yeah, to take a quick look. So obviously, the main thing that stands out here in this screen as such, this is how the reports are going to look, is the score. So the way you want to think of the score is it kind of tells you where you sit at right now with respect to your web analytics setup in GA. So it's not something that you'd want to look at in terms of something very scary to you. Like, don't really be affected if your score is low, or don't be too happy if your score is high or anything. It's just more like a health check. It kind of tells you where you are at today and what you'd need to do to go as close to 100% as possible. So just above the score, you also have a list of the number of tests that we've run. Just do take note that we actually run a lot more tests in the background. There's about 70 to 80 checks, if I can say that, that run in the background. And the tests that come out here, or the results that come out here, are groups, are themes that come out here as such. So it's more for ease of navigation. And again, yeah, you also, when you come down to the bottom of this, you have an option to download this and export it as a PDF. So that's something that you can take out as a PDF or a report and just hand over to your GA point of contact or your developers in terms of what they'd want to be fixing. So that's how the left panel should be looked at. And if you come down to the right-hand side panel as such, it's kind of broken down into high, medium, and low priority fixes. So the fixes as such are based off business impact. Okay, so the fixes as such are based off business impact. Your high priority fixes are things that you'd want to be looking at immediately. Medium and low priority fixes are something that you can kind of add to your roadmap and work on it later as well. If you don't have a developer resource at your end, or if you don't have a dedicated Google Analytics point of contact, medium and low priority fixes are something that you can look at later. So that's how you'd want to kind of look at this side of the screen. And if I were to go into each of the results as such, it covers three main sections. So the first one is on why this is important. So the why this is important part is more like teaching you in terms of why this setting makes sense for GA. So even if you're not very familiar with Google Analytics, and if you're fairly new to it, then you can just use this to understand why this section is really important and why it's been covered as a high priority issue. And once you're done with this, then there's obviously an observations section as well. So the observations section kind of lists down all of the issues that have been found so far. And these are things that you'd want to take note of in terms of fixing. So at this point, obviously, if you also hover over to the information bar here, you can find additional details. And once you're done with this, like if you go down to the recommendations section, recommendations is where it's like you can think of it like a self-service guide. So it's essentially a guide that you can pull out and just give to your Google Analytics point of contact or your developer resource. So they can just go through it. It's a step-by-step instruction in terms of what to do and how to fix this issue as such. So you can just go through all of these steps and just fix the issue. So yeah, so this is around the interface and how to read the results. Most of the checks which Paolo spoke about earlier in terms of your default page setting or your best practice views in terms of your unfiltered, filtered, and test views, your non-AdWords campaigns, your AdWords campaigns, auto tagging, remarketing lists, and whatnot, all of those are listed here. And we've broken them down into high, medium, and low priority issues again. So if I just quickly had to go through one or two reports, like the non-AdWords campaigns, so we hear this a lot. I know a lot of agencies are on call today. So we hear this a lot when you're running your marketing campaigns that your UTM tags have broken, or there's something wrong with respect to your marketing campaigns and the data that's coming in through to Google Analytics. So again, you can take a look at this, and it also gives you a list of best practices that you might want to follow in terms of how to tag your campaigns better, like for email campaigns and social campaigns. So that's how you'd want to read this report. And if I were to quickly show you another report, like e-commerce, for instance. if you just want to check enhanced e-commerce and see if the setting is enabled, and then kind of also understand what reports within enhanced e-commerce as such are broken and what you would need to do to fix this. This is something that obviously is a little code heavy. So you might want to, obviously, if you want to fix this, you have to go back to your developers and kind of give them the code snippet in terms of how to fix that. So again, at this point, we also give you like a code snippet that you might just want to pass on to your developers in terms of how you all should be looking at fixing some of these issues. So that's also there here. And there's also a lot of other reports. So something which Paulo spoke about was unfiltered views. So you can kind of come down to the medium priority issues, and you'll be able to see the presence of unfiltered views and test views and aggregated views. And in case any of that is not working as expected, or in case you don't have an unfiltered view setup, that's something that the auditor will spit out as well. So in addition to all of these tests and checks, obviously, if you're a GA standard client, then these are a lot of the tests that the auditor looks for. But if you're also using Google Analytics 360, then all of your integrations with respect to BigQuery, DV360, SA360, and whatnot are also, they also do come out as reports in this interface. So that's roughly how the auditor results interface looks like. And maybe I'll walk you all through some of the more common use cases that we come across when we have to do an audit for a client. So I'm just going to switch back to the slides. And yeah, feel free to post on chat in case you're not able to see the slides. Yeah. So this is something that's really been causing a buzz for the past few months as such. And it's always been there. Google can actually shut you off Google Analytics if they do find personally identifiable information in your GA servers. So this is something that you want to look out for when you do an audit at your end. So be it manual or be it using an auditor or any other audit tool that you're using at your end, this is something that you obviously want to check for. So we have these checks included as part of the audit results as well. And if you're looking for a more bespoke and customized solution to this, we also have another tool that we work on, which kind of takes care of the deletion of all of these PII fields that it's identified from your Google Analytics, and also future proofing. So happy to chat around this and bounce off ideas if you're interested. Yeah, so feel free. Another really common use case that we come across a lot, and is something that Paulo mentioned earlier as well, is with respect to enhanced e-commerce. So you might be an e-commerce player, or you might also be a non-e-commerce client, but you might have just modeled your website user behavior into the e-commerce reports to obviously make best use of your Google Analytics as such. So for those type of clients, obviously, enhanced e-commerce is a really key report that you want to check for. You want to make sure that all of your steps are really granular, right from product impressions, clicks, add to cart, checkout options, purchase, etc. So that you're making your best use of GA and understanding your customer fully, right from advertising through to conversion and purchase. So this is another really important check that you might want to be looking out for, even when you're doing a manual audit at your end, or also when you're running the auditor as such. And after this, spam. So this is again something that Paulo spoke about as well. So we've had a lot of cases where obviously you don't know if the data in your GA or if the hits in your GA are legit. So it could be caused by a lot of spam traffic. Sometimes you do turn on the bot filtering setting, but you still have a lot of bots and spams that do get recorded in GA. So in such case, obviously you're at the risk of going over your GA 360 tier limit in case you have a lot of spammers spamming your site. So this is something that you'd want to look out for in terms of a use case when you're running a manual audit or if you're using a tool. And campaigns have kind of gone through this when I was looking at the interface as such. So again, you want to check if your campaigns are being tagged correctly, and you don't want to wait till the end of your campaign and then realize that all of your campaign tags were broken. Obviously, that's not an ideal scenario. So, and with that, um, if I were to I mean, that's it from the demo section actually. So if I were to leave you with a few thoughts at this point, the key thing here is obviously to get your data clean, to get your data right before you look at very cool things like cross device analysis, funnel analysis, insights, activation, machine learning, and whatnot. So, irrespective of whether you want to do this whole process manually or just use a tool like an auditor to do it, you just want to make sure this is part of your culture, this is part of your governance culture, and that you're tagging and that you're checking for all of these settings as regularly as possible. So, Joy, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, so thanks for that, Madhu. That was very exciting to look under the hood and see how it actually works. In case you had any thoughts around how often you should be auditing, typically our customers and our partners would be doing it about 4 to 12 times a year. And this would be across whether you have a free account or a 360 account for GA. And this, in summary, is some of the major features that have helped put some scale and speed into the governance process for making your data accurate from for some of our partners and ourselves as well. So we've just shared our contact details as well. If you have any questions either on this call, or if you want to reach out to us separately about the tool and fixing some of the issues which are there in your analytics or making your governance strategy in place, we'd be more than happy to have a conversation around that. So we'll pass it back to Paulo right now for some of the closing thoughts, and I think we have a Q&A section after that. So we look forward to interacting with you at that point.
All right, so thank you, Joy and Madhu, for sharing your expertise in the field as well as sharing the Sparkline Auditor for everyone in this session. So let's do a quick recap of everything that's been discussed to this point. So our recap is essentially a list of best practices as well. Having a properly configured account allows us to collect clean and correct data, which in turn helps meet business objectives and KPIs. To ensure Google Analytics account health, we want to do the following. So number one, configure the account correctly. Take time to go through the configuration settings and set up tracking properly. Number two, fix any account-related issues. So consider an audit to quickly spot issues. So Sparkline has an excellent auditing tool that automates this process and helps reduce the time needed for a diagnosis. So also make sure that concerns such as not sending PIIs to Google Analytics are handled. So these little practices that Joy and Madhu described earlier, they are also important in making sure that we have a healthy account. And the last would be to maximize any available capabilities. So if you have an active account and it's working well and it's good, part of that configuration or part of a good configuration is also making sure that we use the capabilities as extensively as we can. There are many integrations available for both GA standard and GA 360 accounts. So Google Ads would be the most basic integration that you could make, especially if you are on the Google Analytics standard platform. On the GA 360 side, you have integrations with Display and Video 360, Search Ads 360, as well as Optimize 360 and other products like Salesforce Marketing Cloud and Salesforce Sales Cloud. Your data will be very useful in these integrated products simply because if you put together all that data, you have a rich data set by which you can use to gather insights on your business and then eventually also to remarket them in your advertising campaigns. So with that, we'll use the remaining time to answer any questions. I see just one so far on the live chat. So the question is, can auto tagging work together with manual override? So scenario given is using a manual override to report on a custom campaign rather than the default one from auto tagging. So yes, the answer to this question is yes. Um, Auto tagging can work with manual override. So to give a quick idea, manual override is something that you enable within the GA property settings. So it allows you to specify UTM parameters and then override, those will override any auto tagging data that gets sent to Google Analytics. But keep in mind that manual override comes with certain caveats. So number one, this can result in sampling in GA reports. Number two, if you also have Search Ads 360 integrated with your Google Analytics 360 account, this will also affect clicks from campaigns managed through SA360. And number three, manual override isn't supported in multi-channel funnels or attribution reports. So again, it's yes, but keep in mind that there are downsides to, to using manual overrides. There's a follow-up question to this. So will there be any problems with data collection? There shouldn't be any problems with data collection. It's pretty straightforward, a process. If you do a manual override, all the override data will take priority over the auto tagging data. So any issues if you that you should anticipate would probably come from the parameters and the data that you will supply with the manual override. All right, so there's a question here uh, asking, does the workflow to audit a website and mobile app, or would the workflow be the same for auditing a website and a mobile app?
Okay. Maybe I'll take that question, Paolo. So, with respect to the workflow as such, so if you're looking at your GA settings, okay, I'll maybe answer it like this. It's about 70% similar. I mean, you're navigating through the same level of settings that you want to be looking at for both your website and your mobile apps. But obviously, fundamentally, both of them vary as such. So there's that 30% difference that will come in when you're auditing for a website against when you're auditing for a mobile app. This is settings related. Obviously, with respect to the data within Google Analytics, be it a website or a mobile app, then again, there's a lot of dependencies that would come in terms of how it's set up as such, whether you're using a tag management platform or if you're using Firebase for the apps, or if you've been using legacy all this while. So with respect to the data as such, there's a lot of differences that would populate. Settings wise, it's around 70% similar, 30% a bit different. So if you want additional so for instance, if you want to bounce off ideas or you want help from us in terms of what you should be looking at separately for a website and mobile app, yeah, happy to shoot you an email on that.
All right, so there is another question here. So a common problem is how GTM code understands infinite scrolling, so vertical or horizontal scrolling. It's either a history change or manually set up by developers. So the Sparkline audit that as well.
Okay. So I'll take that question again, Paolo. So okay, maybe I'll answer in two parts. We do have another auditor which we call the GTM auditor, which kind of takes care of your GTM container settings and kind of walks through all of the tags, triggers, variables, the relationships, the often tags, triggers, and whatnot. But for your specific use case around infinite scrolling, that's not something that's covered by the auditor at this point. That's something that we'd normally cover manually when we get to the testing process of an implementation for either a client or an agency. So yeah.
right? If there are any additional questions. Right, so we'll close this session. Um, we we thank you for the questions. We hope that we've sufficiently addressed the questions that were raised. So we thank you. We'll send a feedback form through the registered emails that were sent to us when you signed up for the session. So we'll send a feedback form, and we would appreciate if you could provide us a quick feedback to help us improve this program. We'll have some more future sessions, and we're lining them up, and your feedback would greatly help us improve on these future sessions. So with that, thank you and have a good day, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.